Former State Senator Jill Tokuda and current State Representative Patrick Branco are among candidates facing off in the Democratic primary for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District, covering rural Oʻahu and the neighbor islands. Meanwhile, in the State House, former lawmaker Gary Gill faces Jenna Takenouchi in the Democratic primary for District 27, representing Pacific Heights and Nuʻuanu. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Yanji Denise. We feature 2 election contests tonight. In the first half of our show, we will feature candidates in the Democratic primary for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District, which includes rural Oʻahu and the neighbor islands. Incumbent Kai Kahele is not seeking re-election. In the second half of our show, we will shift to the state legislature and the Democratic primary for State House District 27, representing Nuʻuanu and Pacific Heights. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email or call us with your questions. We also encourage you to get involved with the conversation happening on our Facebook page right now. And now to our guests. Jill Tokuda is currently the co-director of Cyber Hawaii. She served as a member of the Hawaii Senate for the 24th District, covering parts of Kailua and Kaneohe from 2006 to 2018. Patrick Branco is currently serving as the state representative for District 50, which includes parts of Kailua and Kaneohe. Before being elected in 2020, he joined the U.S. Foreign Service as a diplomat in 2012. Also on the ballot for Democratic primary are Nicole G., Brendan Schultz, Stephen Sparks, and Kyle Yoshida. Thank you both for joining us here this evening. We appreciate you. I want to start, Patrick, dive right into the issues, and we want to talk about the cost of living. We know here in Hawaii that the cost of living is very high, and what do you think specifically that Congress can do to help some of those pains?
Thank you for that question. Like myself, I currently live in a multi-generational household with my grandmother and my family members. When I became the state representative, I knew that I could never buy a home in my own community. Who can afford $1.5 million? What's happening here is we've been talking about the same issue that we've talked about since I was a child, even before that, economic diversification, cost of living. But it's important that we have an elected official that goes to Congress, stays for the long term, and make sure we have those federal dollars coming back. And one of the core tenets of my platform is economic diversification. There's a huge opportunity here. Hawaii is one of the only states that can produce all forms of renewable energy. Geothermal, wind, wave, solar. We have a wave testing facility in my own district. I would love to see these types of technology being tested here in Hawaii and bringing those types of jobs back to Hawaii. And someone who goes to Congress needs to stay for the long term to make sure they can build that seniority, to build industry in Hawaii.
What do you think Congress can do when it comes to the cost of living?
You know, it's definitely a pain point that we all feel. I look at our own home, and oftentimes I sit at my kitchen table and I have our 2 sons doing their homework there with me. And when I was in the legislature and balancing the state budget and making hefty decisions about where to put the money, where we could potentially cut, you know, sometimes I look out the window and realize that, you know, the decisions that government makes, the actions we take really determine whether or not our children can see a future for themselves here in Hawaii. And as I've crossed throughout the state, gone to every single community on every island, that pain point is the same. The question, can my children afford a home, like Patrick mentioned, with the cost being over $1 million just to start, and oftentimes it's 20 or 30% above asking price, and people pay cash. So many people feel priced out of this place that they love and they call home. And I really think that what Congress has to do, someone there has to really understand the pain points and the perspectives of what it's like for working families to struggle and to want to see their children stay here as well. And I think it's about making sure we put more money in people's pockets. And I think the way Congress can do that is immediately to suspend the gas tax right now and cap it to make sure that those prices stay low and immediately start to put money back into people's wallets for some of the most basic things like getting to and from school, to and from work. I think we've got to increase those food subsidies because when you look at the basic needs people have and the pain points, the cost when you go to the grocery store is too high. And so how can we increase those subsidies that really give families a chance to stretch that dollar farther and continue to put nutritious meals on the table? And then when you take a look, especially at the success we've seen here in Hawaii with emergency rent and utility support, again, the most basic things like shelter, keeping the lights on that we have, that's where Congress can take quick action to make sure that people aren't making a choice between food or shelter. And so I think very quickly, Congress can really start to act now, understanding these pain points and needs to make sure that people can provide for themselves and their families and also have a little bit more money in their pocket to pay for the basic needs that they have every day. And so there's a lot that can be done, and we've got to go out there and champion and fight it. And I definitely know what it's like as a working family to be faced with tough decisions and to really worry about the future for our kids.
Something else that a lot of families are thinking about, and I'll start with you on this. There's two questions here about gun control tonight. This one from Jessica. What are the candidates' positions on gun control? What are they going to do in Congress to end gun violence? Karen wants to know, how do you plan to keep communities safe during rising crime? What do you think is the appropriate way to address violence in schools? How can we confidently put our kids in school without worrying about the next Uvalde? Of course, talking about that mass shooting in Texas that was just so horrific. Let's start with you.
You know, it's a very emotional question, you know, especially as a mother. And you look at the tragedy we've seen in Uvalde. And every time, sadly, that we see one more school shooting, I think for all of us as parents, we're instantly gripped with fear. We think about our kids. Could they be next? Could it happen here? And it's absolutely heartbreaking for us. You know, during the 12 years that I was in the state Senate, we passed some of the toughest gun laws. I supported and stood by our legislature and the executive to pass some of the toughest gun laws in the country. We were the first ones to institute a wrap-back law to put gun owners and registrants into the FBI database, to require background checks, to prohibit bump stocks and high trigger ammunition. These are things, quite frankly, that Hawaii has to be the tip of the spear and lead the nation on. Because while we have strong gun laws in Hawaii, we have to make sure that that's the case for every state in this country. And I think that's really critical and important. I want to go to Congress to make sure that the tough laws we have passed over the last 20 years here in Hawaii and while I was serving in the state Senate, that becomes reality universally across our country. And when you take a look at the fact that we've seen so much more crime, we've seen assaults, the bottom line is, if you ask people right now, and I have, do you feel safe in your own community? Do you feel safe where you've spent all your life? It's really sad, but a lot of people will tell you no, they don't. And that's got to stop. We've got to take proactive measures, whether it's increasing mental health, whether it's making sure that we have treatment and support programs on every island. Sadly, as I'm sure Patrick is seeing when you go out in the community, your zip code, where you live, determines if you have access to basic things like treatment programs, substance abuse, mental health services. Access to healthcare and mental health services is so critical, especially when we consider the health and the safety and the wellness of our people and our families. And that has to be paramount. And that's why we have to go fight for the money to make sure we get our fair share to take care of our residents and families.
What do you say to Jessica and Karen about this issue of gun control and what specifically Congress can do to help this issue?
Our voters are tired of lip service. Our career politicians have been giving their thoughts and prayers but have not done action. I am proud that the first bill that I passed in the Hawaii State Legislature was the prohibition of the possession of ghost guns. Our police officers and our Attorney General's office came to me and said that there was a loophole in the law, and they shared with me a particular case. They had one case where 168 ghost guns, these are untraceable, unregistered, unmarked guns that were collected, but because of the loophole in the law, they were not able to prosecute the case. And I'm proud that within 6 months on the job, working with our Attorney General's office and our police officers, we were able to close this loophole. And it's a badge of honor to me that the NRA membership mobilized against me. And I'm very proud of that. But also, in contrast to my opponent, when she was in the state Senate, she was endorsed by the NRA in 2012. And 2 years later, when Sandy Hook occurred, she still had a B rating from the NRA. And the B rating is defined by the NRA as someone who's generally pro-gun. Hollow words do not matter, records matter. And my opponent has a record from the NRA, and that is indefensible.
I want to give you a chance to respond.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the work that Patrick did do on the legislation for ghost guns and closing the loophole in that particular law. I will tell you, I'm just as confused in terms of the rating that's out there. I know it was from the Hawaii Riflemen's Association, not the NRA. But if my record can speak for itself, if you take a look at all of the gun laws, all of the gun bills that were passed while I served, I voted in support of strengthening those laws. I voted in support of making sure that our people and our families and communities were safe. It's just as confusing to me as to how I got those particular ratings. What I can tell you is I was the vice chair of the Water Land Committee, and oftentimes there were hunter education bills that did come before us that the entire legislature as a whole did support. And whether or not that contributed to the ratings, I'm not sure. But I would also like the record to stand for itself and take a look at where I stood on those bills, both signing on as co-signers and voting in support of it. And that's really what I want to continue to do in Congress as well. Really be at the front of the issue and make sure that we ensure that the protections that Hawaii has here, the strong laws that Hawaii has here, is universal and apply to all of their states across the country. Red flag laws, wrap back laws, increasing the age to 21. These are some of the basic things that can make sure that we start to put an end to the gun violence that we're seeing in our community.
Let's talk about COVID for a moment.
If I may respond.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's important to point out that many of my opponent's colleagues had the same gun rating B, but not all of them sought out the endorsement of the NRA. And I think that's really important, and to be clear, that this was different. And I want to make sure that the electorate deserves to know what was said and what was promised to the NRA to receive that endorsement. And that is very critical, because this is not an issue it's an issue that's important now, but it's been an issue for 10, 20, 30 years.
Okay, I want to give you a chance to briefly respond to that. Is that accurate?
I'll be very brief in this. I did not seek out the endorsement of the NRA as to whether or not I filled out questionnaires. We get a lot of questionnaires that are put forward before us, but I did not seek out the endorsement of the NRA. In fact, we just got a recent endorsement questionnaire, and I will not be seeking out the endorsement of the NRA for this particular election. But again, we really have to make sure this is not a time for back and forth. I think we both agree that the issue of gun safety, gun control, cracking down on violence in our communities and our school, that has to be at the top of everyone's agenda. And I can assure you that's something I want to take to Congress, because our families, our communities deserve to feel safe.
Okay, let's move on. There's a question here from Susan. What is each candidate's position on abortion rights? Tell us a little bit about your thoughts, Patrick. Sure. We'll start with you about the leaked draft opinion of the Supreme Court potential decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. To Susan's question, what's your position on abortion rights? Do you see this as a states' rights issue? Do you see this as a federal issue? How would you legislate on this if you were in Congress?
I am unequivocally pro-choice, and I was horrified by the leaks that came out from the Supreme Court. If elected, I will work hard to codify Roe v. Wade through Congress and also pass the Women's Health Protection Act. But also we need to do more here in Hawaii. Hawaii was the first state that legalized abortion, but we still have significant access issues. We only have abortion clinics on Oʻahu and Maui, but we need to make sure, especially this seat, it's so important. This seat is the seat for the neighbor islands and for our rural communities. And we need to make sure there's proper access to women and also families who are making this decision. It is not right that you can get an abortion only on Oʻahu or Maui. But what about Kauai, Lanai, Molokai, and also Hawaii Island as well? And so we cannot stand by our laurels and just say we were the first pro-abortion state. We need to do more to break those barriers to access.
Okay, what do you say to Susan tonight?
I completely agree that it was a tragedy when we heard about the leaked decision. You know, I happened to be in DC when we found out, and I found myself so upset, angered, not believing that the rights that we fought to protect for so long, the rights that we thought would be there for generations to come, was now not just in question, but in danger of complete denial, depending on where you live, having that kind of access. And you know, I literally found myself at 1 a.m, marching from my hotel to the steps of the Supreme Court to join hundreds of others up in arms to say, absolutely not. Hell no, we're not going to go back. Our daughters, our nieces, our girls, our granddaughters, they deserve better than this, and they will not have less rights than we do. So I absolutely agree. We have to do everything to codify it. And in Hawaii, to make it extra strong, we should put it in our state constitution. We should make it absolutely clear that the right to make decisions and control our own bodies as women, that should never be in question. And I would fully support a constitutional amendment to make sure that was absolutely the case. And we have to make sure that access to these types of reproductive and health services are available on every island. You know, it really broke my heart when I went to Lanai and to Molokai, and I'm not sure if you realize this, but even being able to have a child, you can't necessarily have those types of health services and procedures done depending on what island you live on and depending on the complexity of your birth. So again, when we talk about access to health care, it is very all-inclusive and all-encompassing, that when we take a look at our rural communities, we have to make sure that access to overall health care and all reproductive health care benefits is available to our people.
Well, let's take another avenue of healthcare, and that's COVID. We know the numbers are on the rise if you look at the state positivity rates, and it's really hard to know because those numbers seem to mean different things. But no matter how you slice it, the numbers are high. What are your thoughts on the federal government's role in controlling COVID? What can Congress specifically do versus, you know, Governor Ige, of course, was one of the most conservative governors in the country when it came to lockdowns and mandates. What do you think should be done on the federal side to help as we move out of the pandemic, or at least continue to move through it?
You know, one of the things that I was doing the last 2 years was actually working in conjunction with the state and the counties to track all of the federal dollars that came in to Hawaii. You know, roughly at that point over $22 billion, and we've had more as recent acts have come through Congress as well. And one thing that you did see was the ability to have the resources to make sure that the test kits were available, the vaccination clinics were available, the quarantine sites were available. That money from the federal government made a huge difference in terms of the state being able to proactively and quickly respond. Could we have done better? Absolutely. And I think we've been learning as we go forward at the state and county levels how we need to make sure we provide these services to our people. And so I definitely think that while you look out and you see a lot of people and a lot of large gatherings, you see full planes at the airport, I think it's incumbent that the federal government continue to support states to make sure that there is access to resources to be able to do test kits, vaccination clinics, quarantine sites especially. And I think that resource and that money is really critical at this point as we continue to the next phase of this pandemic.
Okay, let me get your thoughts on COVID mitigation and specifically the role of Congress.
Absolutely. Like my opponent said, it's about access and resources coming for Congress to support. But what I saw during the pandemic was the inability for the government to properly respond. And when I say this is, we need someone that's going to not be able to just sit down and do something, but do something. The communities were confused. There was lack of communication. The federal government didn't do proper communication, and a lot of people were confused, especially here at the state level. And so for me, when I was going through this, I was campaigning. And one of the best things you do when you campaign is knocking on doors. You couldn't canvass. But what was important for me was to make sure that my crisis management skills came into action. And so what we did was my family and I made kupuna kits, which were basically a Ziploc bag with a bag of soup, a mask, gloves that we gave out to 500 kupuna. But when we were out there, we also realized people needed masks. The federal government didn't provide masks. And so my grandmother and I set up luau tables in our garage and we started sewing, and we made 4,000 masks that we gave out to the community. And even when I was in office as well, I reached out to the Department of Health and I asked, could we set up vaccination clinics in my community that was more decentralized? And the Department of Health told me that my community was not a priority. So again, what we did was I got my Tutu's tent, I partnered with Project Vision, and we were able to vaccinate over 1,000 people and test as well in our farmers market every week. We had to meet the people where we're at, and that's what Congress can do. That's what we need, leaders who are willing to do something and not just wait on the side to protect our communities.
I want to ask you, we have so many issues to cover in limited time. I want to ask you about Red Hill and keeping the Navy accountable when it comes to draining the fuel tanks and meeting their responsibilities when it comes to the environmental crisis there. How will you specifically do that? And more broadly, what do you see as the military's role here in the islands going forward?
Thank you for that question. Red Hill is so critical, and this seat is so critical as well. This seat traditionally has had a spot on the House Armed Services Committee, and that's one of the best ways to have oversight of the Navy to make sure that they responsibly decommission Red Hill, as well as make sure that they're not causing any more environmental damage. So it's very critical that this seat makes sure that the Navy is doing that. And I think for my experience as well in the State Department, I've worked with the Department of Defense, I've worked with other agencies, and it's critical we have someone that can hit the ground running, who has significant Washington, D.C. experience, and to make sure that the Navy is accountable. The other thing too, it's not about just decommissioning Red Hill. We need to go a step further, that we make sure that we're never in this position again where our water supply is at threat. We need to make sure that we also have proper testing clinics to make sure that our water is safe. That was an issue. It's also important that we have a desalinization unit here on the island and every island to make sure that we can have proper access to water. That is really important and critical. And I do believe the ability for me, being in Washington, D.C., working with the Department of Defense, working at the highest levels of national security as well as our national security apparatus, can effectively make sure that the Navy decommissions Red Hill in a safe, productive manner.
Okay, what are your thoughts on Red Hill and moving forward?
Well, you know, I'm not unfamiliar with tough decisions. During the 12 years that I was in the State Senate, chairing everything from the Ways and Means Committee to the Education Bracket, Ag Equine Affairs, the labor committees, oftentimes being faced with tough decisions during, you know, good times and not so good times. As we recall, we went through recessions, we went through, you know, strikes, furlough Fridays. We went through so many different experiences that we had to make tough decisions on, looking at rail even. And as many would know, I wasn't afraid to ask the tough questions that needed to be asked. At the end of the day, it has to be about making sure that our families and communities are safe and secure, that we have their best interest in mind. Making sure that for us, CD2 voters, CD2 residents and businesses and families and communities are taken care of. And definitely, I think every member of the congressional delegation has an obligation and a responsibility to make sure that Red Hill is executed right and with fidelity. Right now, I'm very happy to see that we've literally got billions more dollars coming in to support, to make sure that the defueling and decommissioning takes place, but also to make sure that the families that were impacted are taken care of. I think we've got to make sure that we continue to get the resources to adequately do this job and to make sure it's done right. I think we have to make sure that we keep, first and foremost, the families that were impacted by this. And if you think about it as well, we have literally got billions of dollars that will be coming into the state to defuel, decommission, clean up this mess, if you have Red Hill. This is not going to happen overnight. This is a long-term obligation and commitment that the Navy has to this state. And what I want to make sure of is that we have Hawaii people, Hawaii companies, the University of Hawaii, all of our academic institutions, everyone possible involved in this process. If we have billions of dollars coming in to do this work, I want to make sure that it's done with the cultural sensitivity, a sense of place and knowledge as well, that our local people, our local businesses are involved in this process from day one. I think that's going to make the difference on it ending right and ending well, considering the tragedy that it was.
Let me ask you this question, and I'll phrase it in a little bit different for you. As a mother of, this comes from Edward Perez, as a mother of young children, how will you balance your family obligations with the need to be in Washington, D.C. so often? This was the reason Kai Kahele cited as why the job was not a match for him. You know, we've seen so much turnover in this seat. What is your commitment to this seat?
I have a long-term commitment to making sure that we have seniority in the delegation in Washington, D.C. You know, I definitely know there's been some concerns. In the last decade, you've seen folks go from D.C. to running for statewide office, the governor's race. That is not my path. My path and commitment is to D.C. as long as the people have trust, faith, and support me. I know first and foremost, I've got to earn every single day the vote and the confidence of the people that I serve. And that is my commitment in the long term to DC. And I really appreciate, you know, the conversation that I've been able to have with a lot of people about the balance, the family life. You know, from day one, when my children were very first born, they were born when I was in office. So understanding that delicate balance between making sure my family is taken care of and serving my people, you know, I think that's something that I've definitely had some experience doing. And I'll be honest with you, that guilt of that balance, balancing that out, being with them as they go through life, going through school in the same public schools my husband and I went to, that's actually been a real benefit to me. And I think, you know, the perspective I'll bring is that of a concerned parent with kids in our public schools wanting to know if they can stay here in Hawaii, understanding the cost of living that comes with raising a family here in Hawaii. So I actually think that that perspective is so critically important because I know the urgency and I know what I've got to go fight for up in DC.
Okay, and I have to give you the same question. What is your commitment to this seat?
Absolutely. My commitment to the seat, as you know, Yunji on Honolulu Star Advertiser Spotlight, I committed that if there is a senatorial or a gubernatorial seat that opens up, that I am committed to stay in this seat and I will not run for those seats. And I think everyone in this race should make that same commitment. We've seen 3 representatives have this seat in the last 10 years. As you know, finance bills originate in the House, and the only way for Hawaii to get the federal resources that we need is someone who's committed to staying in the House for the long term. We need someone that understands Congress, and not only understands Congress, but understands the practical side. I'm the only candidate in the race that has had significant Washington, D.C. experience, and I come into the race with my eyes wide open. I've done that travel, 17 hours into Afghanistan, negotiating for 6 hours, back on the plane, back to DC, and then into another country. We need someone that actually understands that and knows that it's not just even going between Honolulu and Washington, D.C. When you come home from Washington, D.C., you're going to Kauai, Molokai, Lanai, Hawaii Island, and you need to repeat that. And it's also about staying in Washington and making sure you're building those connections. We need someone that is committed to the seat for the long term to make Hawaii a priority in the halls of Congress again.
This is our last question. We only have 2 minutes, so I ask that you each answer this in about a minute. You know, both of you are from the windward side. You both represented those districts in your political careers. This is a statewide office, right? And so what do you say to the voters who are in, you know, on Hawaii Island, Maui, Kauai County residents? Why should they vote for you, given that you are, you know, obviously here on Oahu? I'll start with you, and then you'll have the last word.
Thank you. This district's unique, right? It's everything outside of urban Honolulu, and the district is, you know, we have cattle ranches and airports, we have parking lots and conservation land. We need someone in this seat that's going to understand this. Not someone that thinks they know everything, but someone who has a track record of convening people, listening people, and taking action. And I do believe that I will be able to do that in this seat. You know, my family is from Kailua, but also my great-grandparents were from Hawaii Island, and my Hawaiian side is from Ulupalakua on Maui. We need someone that understands that and is able to cross all of those boundaries and be able to act and be able to bring what we need to the state.
Okay, and we'll give you the last word on this.
Thank you. You know, one thing you can appreciate about Hawaii is that while we may live in one place, our roots are in so many different places, as just mentioned. You know, my grandfather grew up and spent his childhood on Maui. My family originally came from Okinawa to Kauai and worked the plantations in Puhi. So, you know, we definitely have had strong connections to the neighbor islands. When I served in the state senate, I always made it a point to go out to every single island and spend time listening, learning what their issues were, learning what their hopes were, and working with them to actually get things done as Ways and Means Chair, as Education Chair. When I was Education Chair, I visited and spoke with every single principal in the state, spending time listening, not talking to them, but listening to what they wanted to see done and what had to happen. And I think that kind of sense of listening and leadership, being present, is something that we definitely have to have. That's what CD2 needs right now, is someone who's willing to go that extra mile and be there. You know, 3 or 4 times a week, I'm on a different island, spending time with the people. And that's the kind of commitment you'll get from me, is I will be present, I'll be listening, meet them where they're at, and working to serve them as a neighbor island community.
We want to thank our candidates for U.S. Congressional District 2, Jill Tokuda and Patrick Branco. Coming up next, candidates in the Democratic primary for the State House District 27. As we get ready for our next segment, please do enjoy this Hiki no story from our student journalists at Roosevelt High School.
Roosevelt's bell tower has been a historical landmark in Makiki for many years.
I have no idea why the tower existed. I think my grandma went to school here and she never even heard it ring, or I don't even know if there's a bell in there.
The bell tower has become an iconic structure over the years.
Well, I understand that back during World War II, since it was the highest structure on the island, you know, highest up on this hill, that it was used as a lookout point for enemy aircraft.
Withstanding the rivalry in World War II, the tower continues to face fire, but the friendlier kind.
When I was in high school, the ILH was Interscholastic League of Honolulu, and all of the schools, all of the high schools in town belonged to the ILH. So that included private schools, and the big rivalry, because of our physical proximity, was Roosevelt-Punahou. So Roosevelt guys used to go over and paint the Punahou Rock, and sometimes our tower would get painted buff and blue.
But there is a dark side to the tower.
I know a few stories. One of them is one of our former principals used to tell me that if you look really close in the tower that you would see a figure or a body. And you know, I always drive by and I look and I never saw one until one day I did. And I took a look and it was like, wow, it was crazy. I seen a person standing there, and of course I got all scared and I left. I don't think that anything is haunted. I just know that it brings back a lot of history to the school. And I'm sure that they're very good people, and I guess they want to be nice to us.
We concluded after going through the many resources at the state and school library that the tower was built as just another addition to Roosevelt Spanish architecture, a popular style at the time it was built.
It's our trademark. It's the landmark that when you see Roosevelt, you see that tower. It's like Diamond Head to Waikiki.
This is Rachel Ringor reporting for Hiki No.
Aloha and welcome back to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Yanji Denise. We will now talk with Democratic candidates for the State House of Representatives District 27, which covers Nu'uanu, Liliha, Pu'unui, and Alewa Heights. Jenna Takenouchi has worked for the current District 27 representative, Takashi Ono, for the last 10 years. She is also the current Assistant Secretary for the Democratic Party of Hawaii Oʻahu County Committee. Gary Gill served as a member of the Honolulu City Council for 8 years. He was appointed by 2 governors to lead Hawaii's environmental protection programs. He serves on various nonprofit boards and is active in conservation efforts on Oʻahu. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Jenna, I want to start with you. What do you think is the biggest issue facing the district, and what do you hope to do about it?
Sure. Thanks for that first question, and thanks for having me here on the show. I think by and large, as I'm going door to door talking to people, it's crime and safety in our communities. I don't think I've had a single conversation with somebody that crime hasn't come up or been touched upon. So, I think there's a general feeling that, people either have been victimized by like a break-in or a theft. They've either been victimized themselves, they know somebody who's been victimized, or they just kind of don't feel safe in their neighborhoods or in our public spaces anymore. I think this is a big concern to everybody, and that's a major goal that I hope to kind of work on if I get into office.
And what do you think the Ledge can specifically do on that issue? Is that not a city issue then with the Honolulu Police Department? What do you think that the legislature can do when it comes to criminal safety?
Sure, definitely from the enforcement side, definitely HPD does a great job in trying to keep our communities safe. But I think what the legislature can do is really put funding and time into keeping crime off our streets by ensuring people who are re-entering the community after they've served their terms are kind of equipped to do so and become productive citizens again. This is, while they're incarcerated, addressing mental health or substance abuse issues, which are a key factor in why a lot of these crimes are likely happening. Also, upon release, just making sure they have the support services to be productive once they get back into the community. That's making sure they have IDs, because that's a big part of day-to-day life now. It's making sure they have access to a housing source, to medical care, to be able to get a job, to keep them from falling back into these patterns of crime.
Gary, what do you think is the biggest issue facing the district, and what do you hope to do about it?
Well, I think Jenna points out that when you knock door to door, you kind of hear the local issues, like the sidewalks and the potholes and the traffic and the monster homes. I'm sure she's heard all that, as I have. And it's important that we as elected officials are a gateway to government to help people resolve those concerns. But when people ask me, I think the concerns of our neighborhood are the same concerns of the whole state. We have environmental crisis that's going to impact everybody here as sea level rises. We have a growing income disparity. In my whole life, the rich have been getting richer and the poor have been getting poorer. My friends are on the beach and a couple guys are building their own rocket ships to go to Mars, okay? That's a big problem. Those are the kinds of big problems that I see that are driving me back into running for politics again.
Let's talk a little bit about that income disparity. Hawaii residents are really struggling to get by, particularly now. What do you think that the legislature can do to ease some of that economic uncertainty?
Okay, first thing, big thing, affordable housing. If you can't afford a place to live, you cannot afford to be in Hawaii. It's probably the biggest driver. So when I was on the city council, we actually had the city, under Mayor Frank Fosse, had a pretty good housing program. We built hundreds of affordable rentals, all the affordable rentals downtown. That was built when I was housing chair. Kupuna elderly housing, big important thing. You know, when the public puts public money into housing, it should be for us, the people who live here, and it should be made to be affordable forever, because 10 years from now it's going to be even worse. There are other things we can do. Tax policy is a big part of it. We need to make sure that the tourists pay their fair share. I would just say let's double the tourist tax, okay, and use that money to improve our lives here, to make things more affordable for us, share the burden from people who don't live here and don't pay taxes, have them, since that's our main economy, support the goods and services that we need. We can reduce the GET on food and drugs for local people, so that will put money directly back into their pockets as well. There's a long range of things that we need to do to make sure that our economy and our tax policy works for us.
Hey, Jenna, what are your thoughts on how we can help people who are struggling financially?
Sure. If crime and safety is number one thing I'm hearing, definitely people are touching on the current price of things day to day. That's their gas and their groceries, all these necessities that they're feeling the pinch at. And you know, I think it's hard for people because with these rising costs, because even though they're trying to get by, they know that there's these big expenses probably coming up right around the corner, paying their property tax, and how they're going to make the decisions between, you know, getting their daily necessities when they need to plan for this thing, for these big expenses. I know I kind of think about this myself. I have student loans, which are currently on hold by the federal government, but you know, when we resume those payments, that's an extra $200, $300 that I'm gonna have to pay on top of my day-to-day expenses. So that's definitely something I hear when people bring up their concerns about this. I think in general, when we come back to the legislative session next year, it's going to be particularly important to be mindful about this financial burden that the everyday person is facing. So yes, before we impose a tax or start a new program, to just really remember that day-to-day impact that your neighbor is going to feel.
Well, on that, you know, Hawaii had a significant surplus this year. The Ledge had a lot of money to work with. How do you think they did with those funds, and what programs do you think or initiatives do you think that the next session should focus on?
Sure, yes, we had an unprecedented year. We were able to fund so many initiatives that had never seen the amount of funding they got, Native Hawaiian, homelands, and such. I think one area that could use more funding, Representative Ono and I worked on the House Committee on Corrections, Military, and Veterans. So we did a lot of work with the Department of Public Safety and our corrections facilities specifically. I know they are facing major issues with overcrowding, with aging facilities, with being able to fund those programs I mentioned that could help reduce recidivism by supporting people trying to really overcome the issues that they've been faced from an economic standpoint, if they've fallen into substance abuse, if they need mental health services, and really making sure that they are getting this in order to be able to be, again, productive when they re-enter society, and that we support them in that effort.
Okay. What do you think about what the Ledge did with all that money that they had, and what do you hope they do next
well, it's
session?
like Christmas came early, didn't it? All of a sudden there was millions and millions of dollars to give away. What concerns me about that is when the legislature said, oh, we finally have the funds to put to these programs that we've been neglecting all this time. Well, why were they neglected all this time? It seems like the legislature has this no new tax policy, And you know, I've been in the administration where we've had these 5%, 10% across-the-board cuts, furloughs, all this kind of stuff. And you see the government shrinking, actually, and the needs expanding. And so all of a sudden there's money and they say, oh, we can solve these needs. Well, they really have the job of assuring that the needs are met constantly instead of playing catch up when, you know, money comes from the federal government and go like, oh, wow, now we can solve things. And so I think that's really what I have in mind is restructuring our tax policy so that it actually supports the resources and the services that we need. People like to grumble about government, you know, it's like, it's all messed up. Yet at the same time, they're happy to have their garbage collected. They're happy to have the roads fixed. They're happy to have the parks, you know, taken care of and, you know, the services when you need them. So it's really our job of government in the legislature to set that policy in such a way that we are meeting those needs and we're taxing fairly to support the services that people demand.
You know, you talk about sort of distrust of government. One of the things that really led to that, of course, was the huge corruption scandal that happened in the legislature this year. How do you think you helped to restore public trust in that institution?
Those two guys make me so mad. You know, as someone who's been outside of government organizing in the community, someone who has served in elected office on the city council as chair of the city council, and someone who's actually administered state programs, the public trust in what we do is so vital. And you have these two bozos who are like taking cash under the counter. It just drives me nuts because it sets us back. Every good person, and most of the people in the legislature are excellent, hardworking people trying to do the right thing. And I can tell you, everybody I worked with in the Department of Health, all the civil servants, they're mission driven, trying to get the job done with no resources, you know. And then you have these two clowns who like take a couple bucks under the you know, floor mat of your car, and it just makes everything harder for everybody. So what do? We open up the legislature, more openness, more sunshine. We got to take the money out of politics. We shouldn't be having incumbents or challengers taking special interest money. We should publicly fund candidates. Programs like this, which are free, no charge to us, we get to share our ideas. We got to have this for everybody so that challengers have an equal opportunity to get their ideas out and their solutions to the problems, and the public have a better choice.
Jenna, how do we restore public trust given the scandal that unfolded this year?
Yeah, I mean, the first step that we took this year, passing the bill to prohibit lobbying or campaign fundraisers during session, was a great first step. I am interested to see what the special committee that was convened by the Speaker of the House comes up with for additional recommendations for legislation and even adjustments to our internal House rules in order to be more transparent and be more open to the public to help start to rebuild that trust. I think along with the trust issue that this has caused, in general, people have been having a growing sense of apathy and dissatisfaction with government. I think one thing I hope to do personally is to just continue very open dialogue. Being in the office for 10 years, I think the constituents who know me there have come to realize that, you know, I'm an open ear to listen to. They feel comfortable calling in to the office with just a random question, which may or may not even be government, but, you know, we can direct them to the provider or agency. And I think just building that relationship with an elected official or an office really kind of helps people put a face to government and start to build those relationships and make that connection where they'll feel better about the decisions they make and want to interact with government and their elected officials.
Let's talk a little bit about managing COVID. How do you think the current administration did when it comes to managing COVID, and what role do you think the Ledge should play going forward? You know, we still have very high positivity rate across the state, but it does feel like there's no indoor mask mandates. It's more of a suggestion than a rule. How do you feel about those policies right now?
Sure. I know it was frustrating and certainly challenging for especially our local businesses as we've been going through COVID, just kind of coming out of it, and now our numbers are rising again. I think the main thing is that we watch our hospital capacity and listen to our healthcare providers. You know, I think we need to take the lead in following what they're recommending, since we are so isolated here in Hawaii. We have a finite number of ventilators. We have a finite number of hospital beds. That's not going to be easy for us to expand. So really kind of focusing and taking the lead on whatever that means. If that means tightening restrictions because we're at a critical mass, we need to be able to protect our kupuna who are still, even with vaccinations, more vulnerable to this disease, and are definitely are other people who are more vulnerable to the to COVID. So.
What are your thoughts about COVID mitigation going forward? Do you think we're out of the system of mandates and lockdowns, or could that come again? And do you support that?
It could come again, but I'm anticipating it won't. I think we're at the point now of living with COVID the way we live with the flu and chicken pox and the rest of things. It's going to be with us. I think there's a couple good things that came out of the COVID pandemic. For the first time in probably my life, people know how to wash their hands. Right, and they do it, right, and they're willing to wear masks. And by and large, I'm really proud of how the people of Hawaii responded. Most people knew that it's our responsibility to the community to take care of each other. There are a few who refuse to wear masks for whatever reason, but they're a loud minority. I come from the Department of Health for 12 years. We spent a lot of time drilling, getting ready for what everybody anticipated was going to be the next pandemic, or the epidemic or pandemic. I've responded to dengue fever and chikungunya and all these other things that come through. This was a big one that people have been waiting for and drilling for a long time, but under-resourced. I remember, China set up a new hospital in like 3 days. I don't think we could even set up a tent in 3 months, the way it's structured now. We need to be ready with those resources in government so that we can respond, because this will happen again. If it's not COVID, it'll be the next thing. And we're better prepared now, but those resources need to be put in place in anticipation of the next global or local epidemic.
Well, another resource that was really highlighted as lacking is our dependence on food coming in and our lack of food security. What do you think the legislature can do to make Hawaii, we've heard a lot about pledges and promises to make Hawaii more sustainable in that regard, but we are certainly not there.
We have the goals. That's the first thing, all right? Everybody's agreeing that we ought to grow more of our food. It's been a real disappointment that we haven't seen the state infrastructure in place to really get local food production going in a way, production of food that we eat as opposed to export, okay? And there's a lot of things that have to go into an agricultural economy. You have to have the land, you have to have the water, you have to have the transportation, you have to have the marketing. You can't just have everybody saying, I want to grow watermelons. Then everybody grows watermelons and the price of watermelons crashes, So there are countries who do this. Holland does this very successfully with co-ops, or what they're calling, food hubs now, right? So there's so much more infrastructure that needs to go into it. And we've been talking about it forever, my whole life. I mean, I was on the city council when the plantations shut down. I'm going like, great, we finally have land to grow our own food. And it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened because we haven't put the resources into making it happen and supporting the farmers and creating the markets and the funding and the land and the water necessary to have an active agricultural economy.
Jenna, what are your thoughts about food security in the islands?
Sure, yes. Again, goals are a great place to start, and definitely the implementation and the role government can do to kind of help us move closer towards food sustainability for our residents is definitely setting up programs and access. In recent years, we've done a big push to get more farm to school, locally produced vegetables into our public school lunches. Great first step. I actually talked to a resident in Camp Heights who specifically brought up that she felt, not that she was living in a food desert necessarily, but she didn't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables within like a walking distance. She had to drive there. And she just felt if there were more venues, more opportunity to access that for everybody, you know, we increase healthy lifestyles, and that also creates these venues for our local farmers to be able to fill those venues that we're setting up. I think government should look at these communities where maybe, yeah, you should be able to maybe walk 10 or 15 minutes and get fresh fruit for your family without having to go through so much effort to do so.
I want to bring in this question from the audience, an interesting one from Eric. We'll start with you, and then Gil will give you a chance for this as well. What will you do about teacher retention and filling teacher vacancies? We know that we don't have enough teachers. We certainly need more. That was highlighted during the pandemic, and as a mother of 2 kids, I can tell you that is definitely something I hear about quite a bit. So tell us a little bit about what you would do for the teacher shortage specifically.
Sure. Well, I also hear a lot about it. My sister and brother-in-law are both public school teachers, so they were definitely feeling the strain during COVID and in general as well. I think a lot of the issues that we can do for teacher retention have to do with really making sure, one, we support our teachers once they're in the community, and also kind of maybe funnel people back into the communities that they've come from. This is maybe, you know, LCC has a great program where they actually help their educational assistants go through the process to get their teaching licenses while they're already working in the schools. So then, you know, they're going back to the communities they're already working in and serving. I think that's a great way to kind of tap local talent and local people from the community to kind of go back into those systems, especially in our hard to fill school positions. And similarly, maybe we need to start funneling more of our local high school students directly back and making that pathway easier for them to funnel back into the communities they know and serve and want to provide that access to for teachers.
What do you say to Eric about teacher retention and filling those vacancies?
I had the opportunity to actually be a teacher. I was a substitute teacher for a while. Wow, that's a tough job, I'll tell you. Just managing all those kids every day. You know, I have great respect for teachers who've made this a career. So there's a lot of things to do. I had this conversation with the teachers union, who, by the way, has endorsed me, so I'm going to listen to a lot of their ideas. I don't consider myself an expert, but I do think that teachers have been in the front line during this COVID thing, and we are on the brink of continually losing some of our best, youngest, hardest working teachers just to burnout. I mean, I've heard this directly from people. So like, I can't do this another year. You know, it's just been really tough. So we need to throw more resources at it. Having a safe and secure and affordable place to live for teachers who are, you know, we're asking to go, especially in remote rural communities where it's hardest to get people to go and to be teachers. We need to support them and have a place in the community that's convenient for them to live. I also hear a lot of concern about just the bureaucracy, and maybe you always hear about the bureaucracy, but we have so many programs that are model programs that have come from the bottom up, not from the DOE necessarily, but from the teachers and the principals trying to do new and innovative things. We need to do more of that. We need to empower the teachers who are there in the front lines in the schools every day, and to come up with these programs and to support them and to spread them throughout the school system. When we have something that works, let's replicate it and make sure everybody has a chance.
We are almost out of time. Hard to believe the half hour goes very quickly. You know, we can read your resume, we can read your campaign website, but I'd like, for each of you to take about a minute to tell us what's the best argument for your candidacy that maybe we don't glean from your resume.
Oh boy. I think you can glean a lot from my resume because I've been at this for 50 years. I think what I bring in terms of what I'd ask the public, the voters in my district to look at is my experience, my life experience. I started as a hotel worker. I was elected as a union shop steward. I represented mostly working women. Many people for whom English wasn't their first language. And that's what I did for 8 years, in the grassroots, in the workplace, helping people, helping the working people. I've been on the city council. I've been in administration and environmental programs for the state, and I've got some experience in the private sector as well, family business, doing conservation and reforestation and Camp Palihua. So it's hard to put it into a little nugget because there's so many things that I've been involved in. But I think also what I have is a legacy of integrity that goes back generations. My father served as lieutenant governor and in the U.S. Congress and the Territorial House, one of the organizers of the Democratic Party back in the 50s. But I also try to articulate a broader vision. Where are we going in the big picture? And that's what I bring.
Then we have to leave it there so that we give Jenna an opportunity also to tell us what's the best argument for your candidacy.
I think the strength in my candidacy is I've been doing the work for the residents of District 27 for the past 10 years. You know, I've been their point of contact, I've listened to their issues, I'm the one who's been working with them alongside the department and agencies to find solutions to their problems. I know that means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to them as well, because they've told me, as I've been going door to door, people have told me how happy they are to see me running. And offered to put up signs that they just remember the small gesture if I filled a pothole or just fixed a street light for them. That really meant a lot to them and how they interact with government. So I hope to continue that work for the existing residents who were in the old 27, and definitely to get to know the new areas of 27 and let them know that, yeah, I'm here and I'm here to help you solve your problems because I just care about our community.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being here tonight. Mahalo for joining us. Of course, we do thank our guests, Democratic hopefuls for State House District 27, Jenna Takenouchi and Gary Gill. Next week, right here on Insights, we will talk to the leading candidates in the Democratic primary for Lieutenant Governor. Please do join us then. I'm Yanji Denise for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Aloha.